Thank you, Jody. You tell a good story. Good morning, everybody. It's always so fun to be here with you all as I organize myself, and good morning to the virtual world as well. I'm just so honored that you're spending your Sunday morning, or whenever you are watching, to watch. Let me gather my things here, and gosh, so much to talk about since we've seen each other last, let's see what's going on with me. So I was in Hawaii a couple weeks ago. Actually, I just got back last week. I was in the island of Kauai, which was just gorgeous, just absolutely beautiful. I want to share something that happened there that I want to, that just kind of something that had been on my mind here. And then I want to share some other things, and I just did something funny here. I don't know if I can fix this. I can't. Oh well, I can still read it, so that'll work. So Hawaii. So I have this weird little thing that goes on. And I share it with another friend of mine, which is whenever I go someplace, I'm not a big fan of flying, but it's not so much that it'll keep me from traveling some places. It's just not my thing that I enjoy the most to do, but I'll do it because I'd rather go to Hawaii than not, and it's a long swim. But what I noticed about when I fly is I never sleep. And the reason I don't sleep is because I have this concern that something is going to happen and they're going to ask me to fly the airplane. Did you ever see that movie Airplane where I don't know how to fly this plane? So let me clarify a thing. I know that sounds ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous. I know in an infinite universe where anything is possible, the probability of that is minuscule. But it's enough to keep me concerned, as goofy, as irrational as it is. But how many of you have little quirks just like that you know are silly and improbable, and yet you still do them, right? Because we've got these things just kind of woven into us. These little fears, these little quirks, these little things that are so irrational, but they're just embedded in our bodies. And so, the act of prayer, the act of contemplation, the act of opening ourselves up to something greater than the experience that we're in allows us to kind of move through that. But again, it just kind of holds us there. And another thing that just amazes me is that a plane can take off. Now this is odd. So there's not a direct, the airline that I flew, there's not a direct flight from San Diego to Kauai. You have to go through, of all places, Las Vegas, which, by the way, is like the opposite of Kauai. So, but, I think to myself, how in the world does this plane get there? Now, I know there's GPS, and I know that there's satellites, and I know all that other kind of stuff, but when you look out the window for hours, and all you see is ocean, you think to yourself, how did they get here? And maybe not airlines, and maybe not even ocean liners, but I think about the early inhabitants of Hawaii, who got there long before compass and telescopes and GPS. They got in dugout canoes and paddled for hundreds, if not thousands of miles in the open sea and found the island, and then went back to their island, and then went back again to this island. And they didn't miss the island. How is that so? And you hear stories of of the shamans on these boats, and how they could feel the tides, and they could see the stars, and they had a sense of rhythm. They were fully occupied in the space in which they were occupying, and in doing so were able to navigate themselves from here to there. And it's just not the Polynesians that do this. I mean, we know that this is the story of human endeavor, of discovery of one form or another. You know, Abraham Heschel, who's one of my spiritual heroes, says that the mind, he says we have two ways of knowing. One is through reason. And through reason, what we do is we organize what we already know. But then there's this thing called wonder, amazement, surprise, that allows us to access information that's not reasonably available to us, and yet we can get there, right? That sense of being in that place of awe, amazement, surprise. Again, you know, my teacher used to say that the mind thinks through reason and the heart thinks through intuition. And I think we often will lean on reason because it's the reasonable thing to do. And yet, buried deep inside this very reasonable person is a person who's white-knuckling the flight, wondering if any minute they're going to tap me on the shoulder and say, "We need you." Or whatever the quirk may be. So that brings me then to this second consideration that I've been sitting with, which was when I was in Kauai, we were on the North Shore, and we were with some friends, and we saw the starry world from Kauai. Now, I have seen the canopy of heaven in the mountains, and I've seen it out in Zion, but there is something about being on that island where there is absolutely no light pollution at all, that you see the starry world in a place where it took my breath away. It was just amazing, and brought me to this place of amazement and wonder and awe. And I think about our ancestors from whatever continent they must have come from, however they got here, or wherever they lived, or however they live, is all of our ancestors saw the starry world. And it led into this place of amazement and wonder, and this encounter with this divine, and accessing something, because there's something about seeing that goes beyond reason, but plunges us into this remarkable place of knowingness, of connection, of reading, of rhythm. And you know, and I think those things are so important. You know, we're just finishing Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which ends tomorrow night, and that's the. You know, Rosh Hashanah means the head of the year. It means a new beginning. And what I love about this festival is it's not just, you know, a new year. It's the birthday of the universe. Now, who knows when the universe was born, because the universe came into being before the laws of physics were applied, and so there was no time. But this sense of, wow, somehow or another, all this began from something, somehow, and that everything is connected and everything is kind of expanding from this place. And so here we are. At least our planet is cycling around the sun one more season, and we find ourselves in autumn often. I do, at a crossroads, right? A crossroads of, you know, what's coming down, what's happening. And, you know, and this one's a personal crossroads for me for several things that are going on, but I know that you as a spiritual community are at a crossroads. I know my community is at a crossroads. I know our nation is at a crossroads. And what I shared with you last month is that the beginning of the creative process begins with our acknowledging that we don't know what in the world is going on. And what an open place that is to feel that in our body, right? I don't know. I don't know. Because when I can admit that, when I can tell the truth that Jesus, I don't have a clue, that I'm teachable, that I'm open, that I'm expansive. Because if I think I know, even though I don't know, I have a tendency to be judgmental. And when I'm judgmental, I'm closed. I'm looking for evidence to support what I think is right, as opposed to being open to this sense of amazement and wonder and awe. One of my heroes, Wendell Berry, says it this way. He says, "It may be that when we no longer know which way to go, we have come to our real journey." When we don't know which way to go, we begin our real journey. Because what would be the point of faith? But here we go. And here we stand in this sense of anticipation of where we want to be and where we go. And sitting with this sense of amazement and wonder. So that brings me to the second thing that I've been considering these last 2 weeks. And that is something that I saw on Twitter. I saw this on social media. It was a film, and it was a film that, you know how you can see sometimes they show films of like security cameras, so they're kind of black and white. And this was a film, this was a security camera in Brazil, and I checked it out, it was actually the real deal. And what it was a restaurant of people, and you can see these people outside, and they're all eating their meal, and they're talking, and they're visiting, and they're doing whatever was going on. But there is a CrossFit group that runs by. CrossFit, by the way, is like they're these small local gyms and people work out together and do their things. And so this group of CrossFit people, you saw the film? This group of CrossFit people run past the restaurant and everybody in the restaurant gets up and runs with them. Yes, they all got up. Nobody asked. Nobody wondered. Nobody was curious. They just figured they're running. We need to run too. And off they went. And you see this whole restaurant is deserted because everybody gets up and they're just following these people running and no one knows where the hell anybody's going or why. We are funny creatures. But how many times will we do that, right? How many times will we outsource the authorship, the authority of our own life for something else? Soren Kierkegaard says this. He says, the majority of people are not so afraid of holding a wrong opinion as they are of holding an opinion alone. We would rather be wrong with everybody than be right alone, or to follow our own intuition. Or if the science of mind and spirit teaches us anything, it's to trust our intuition. As Dr. Holmes says, it is our intuitive nature where the divine speaks to us. And can we trust that? That's the practice, right? That's the practice. So I've been sitting with this, and as I've been kind of preparing for this, I got this I Ching reading that I want to share part of it with you. But I want to ask this question. How many of you have failed at something? But I mean, really failed at it. Like jaw drop, oh my God, that's going to cost us kind of failure, right? That kind of failure. What the I Ching says is something that says this. He says, to have never failed in life is to fail in the biggest way. To have never failed at life is to have failed in the biggest way, because it means you have taken no risks. You have not gotten in that dugout canoe and said to your partners, what in the hell are we doing? I'm sorry, I'm at a church. It just dawned on me how I'm talking, like I'm at a bar or at my home or at my church. What are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah. And so this endeavor of being teachable, because I think what's happened in our culture is we have woven a morality around failure, as if we fail, then we are a failure. And nothing could be further from the truth. Have you ever watched a baby learn to walk? All they do is fall down until they get it. Because every failure, boom, this way. Got to try this. Boom, this way. Boom, this way. Boom, this. We have a puppy. He's a puppy. He's quite a puppy. He's a German Shepherd Great Pyrenees. He's 7 months old and he's 75 pounds. He's halfway there. And we don't have a big house. And I watch him as he sort of is learning to be in his body. Failing sometimes, crash, boom, whatever that may be. But learning, adjusting, knowing, being aware, fully occupying the space that he's fully occupying, as all of us do. And so that brings me to probably my favorite line in the entire Science of Mind text. And I think of this, if I could, we don't do these things, of course, but if you were to say, the entire Science of Mind text, let's face it, could really use an editor. But if you were going to give it to me to edit, I could do it in a paragraph. And the paragraph is from 282, page 282, for those keeping score. And it starts like this. When things look their worst, is the best time to work, the most satisfying. Let that thing sink in. When things look their worst, is the best time, the most satisfying, because we're the most teachable, we're the most engaged, we're the most present. We are very curious about things. And then, and this leads to it, but this is it, and the theme of my talk, to that person who can throw themselves with complete abandon into that infinite sea of receptivity, having cut loose from all apparent moorings from the past, to that person is the greatest reward. So contemplate that for a second. First of all, when you're at a crossroads, when you don't know what's going on, that's when the real journey begins. When I am willing to risk failure means I am most teachable. When I decide I'm going to finish my entree even though everybody else is running by, I am holding the authority of my life. And if I am willing to throw myself with complete abandon into that infinite sea of receptivity, that place of knowing. I just love when you quoted Einstein, because that's one of my, whenever I counsel anybody or whenever I teach anybody, it's the first question I ask: what kind of universe do you live in? To contemplate, is the universe friendly? Is it loving? Is it good? Is it engaging? Is it intelligent? Is it aware? Is it alive? Look at the canopy of heaven and see where your heart, where amazement and surprise answer that question for you. And to trust in that, to fully occupy the space that you occupy, cutting loose from every old story and every old reasonable thing and every old thing that keeps you awake on airplanes when you know it's simply not true. To free ourselves from that, then and there is the greatest reward. So thank you for your kind attention this morning.